Here we go again. Time to hold myself accountable for stuff I said on the internet 10 months ago. We are reacting to my 24-25 Premier League predictions. Here are the amount of places I was out for each and every team. The good, the bad, and the ugly. If you see a minus number up there, that means I predicted the team to finish lower than they actually did. If you see a plus number, I predicted them to finish higher than they actually did. I think a lot of people are going to be stitched up by a certain three teams who finished miles away from, kind of the perceived wisdom about where they would be. Let me know in the comments, particularly if you didn't, wrong way, get stitched up by those three teams. All will be revealed. Let me know how many bob-ons you got as well. Let's start with the good ones up there. I've got two bob-ons and a -1. Arsenal, I had to finish in second place, where they actually did end up finishing. Again, we'll have the conversation when it comes to the start of next season. Can Arsenal finally go one better and actually win the title? Once again, I'll get to Southampton in a second because we've got a clip. Leicester, one place out, so they were better than I thought. But the bad news was I said 19th. They finished 18th, so it is a correct relegation prediction for Leicester, who were below the dotted line. I think, talk about a points deduction, which didn't happen. They still went down with it as it all played out. The three promoted teams were miles and miles off it, and the biggest example of that was Southampton, who finished bottom of the pile. Here is a clip. I've got Southampton in 20th. Just looking at the business, it does just seem to be sort of retaining the squad from last season. I like Russ Martin, but the general sort of feeling is that he always takes a little while to warm into the season, tend to finish better than they start, but you just don't get the luxury, do you? There you go, some accurate stuff I said. I mean, takes Russ Martin a while to warm into the season. Would they have warmed into it? I don't know. A lot of people have kind of said to me, well, they finished with 12 points. They would have got more than that if they'd just ridden it out with Russ Martin, who looks like he's about to take the Leicester job in the Championship. And, I don't know. We're musical chairs there. But, yeah, I mean, you're never pleased to be correct on predicting somebody bottom. But there you go. I very much was. Let me know how you got on with those three. Let's do some +2s and some -2s there. So Everton, I predicted to finish 11th. They actually finished 13th. I'm 2 out, but I was quite wrong about this because I thought, based on where Sean Dyche would actually have had them, in spite of the points deduction, was kind of in the middle of the table. Obviously, then he went and got sacked. It looked pretty terrible. And then David Moyes went back and, sort of sorted everything out there. So I'm kind of close. That's a bit of a fluky one. And let's talk about my team, Ipswich, who I predicted to survive. Spoiler alert, they didn't. Here's a clip. The way it can happen is momentum and pattern of play, really. Let's be honest. Everyone's going to have better squads and, more Premier League experience than Ipswich. The level was raised by an excellent managerial performance and a really, really stable pattern of play after a couple of years of winning. And that is my hope for Ipswich, that will see them one place above the dotted line. Well, there you go. That's a load of stuff that didn't happen, that could have happened, that I hope would have happened. And when you talk about stability and pattern of play, I mean, a lot of people have sneered at the pattern of play of all of the promoted teams, which I think is a little unfair when you consider the actual inequalities in playing squad and finances, etc. But Ipswich didn't have a stable pattern of play in the end, did they? Because they had to change so many players and injury problems, and you can put game management alongside that as well. But it didn't work out how I hoped it would. And Ipswich, back in the Championship there, I said they'd be 17th. Well, they were 19th. We might get movement on this, by the way, if Leicester get a points deduction post this. And I might actually end up being, I could be bob on with Leicester, couldn't I? I'm not going to be bob on with Ipswich unless Man City also get deducted, I don't know, what would it be, 50 odd points, but hey ho. I'm in dreamland here. Speaking of Man City, look, I'm only 2 places out, but I'm a chasm out with Manchester City because I thought that they would win the title. And in terms of a few absolutely shocking seasons, and we'll get to the real ones that surprised everybody, maybe Man City's is the most shocking out of all of them because we've just never seen them under Pep Guardiola. And what happened, I mean, even in terms of the cup final as well, losing out, okay, you can lose a one-off cup final, but that period through the winter where they were basically just a team that couldn't really win a game for, I don't know, 6 weeks or so was just incredible. And we've just never seen the like of it, have we? Wolves, again, I'm 2 out, but it's a big 2 because like Man City, I predicted them to win the title. I predicted Wolves to go down and they had a pretty good go at it, didn't they? Wolves were utterly terrible up until the managerial change with O'Neill out and Pereira in. And I suppose you've got to give Pereira his flowers. You've got to give Cunha his flowers as well. The 2 centre midfielders at Wolves are very, very good. The Brazilian lads as well. And parlay that in with the fact that it just appears at the moment that for an established team in the 17 to go down, they basically have to be as bad as they could possibly ever imagine to be for the entire season. And they'll probably go down by 1 point or goal difference on the last day or something. And yeah, Wolves had a pretty good go at it in the first half of the season, but were very, very good in the second half of the season. We've got a couple of +3s to finish off kind of the good side here. I've got Villa. I had 3 places too high. I actually had Villa finishing in 3rd place. I thought that it was going to be Arsenal and Man City once again up at the top of the table. And I actually had Villa as the best of the rest. Yes, above Liverpool, who ultimately went on to win the title, didn't they? Obviously, they got close to Champions League, and we can talk about the final day and you know, that could have literally only would have been 1 place higher even if they'd got the 3 points, wouldn't they, given Chelsea's goal difference. But look, that's not a terrible prediction, is it? Villa in the kind of European Champions League conversation. I just had them at the top of the pile and turns out they were kind of closer to the bottom of the pile in terms of the Champions League places. Well, they're literally outside it, weren't they? Palace, I thought would have a decent season. Turns out they had a decent season by winning the FA Cup. I thought they'd finish 9th in the top half, and I watched back what I said, and because it was 12th, 11th, 10th, I just kind of went 9th. So I said 9th, they actually went back down to 12th. But if you'd have promised Crystal Palace fans 17th place and an FA Cup win, and the scenes we saw at Wembley, absolutely brilliant. So Glasner, I was praising as well in the video. We'll link it up at the end of this one. Did a great job, and Palace to win a trophy, I don't know, is far more important than the difference between 9th and 12th. So well done, Palace. Shall we move over to the bad side here? Although there's still 3 out. That's difficult because I do this with the EFL leagues that have obviously got 24 teams in as opposed to 20, which is a massive difference. And 3 places out is like a 7-place spread, literally. So it does cover a multitude of sins. There are Newcastle, who proved me wrong. Look, I had Newcastle in 8th. So I know it's 3 places, but the gravity of that in terms of Newcastle being a Champions League team, they would have got Europe with 8th, I think, wouldn't they, in the end? Although massive hodgepodge of... Look, they got it anyway because they won the Carabao Cup, didn't they? But yeah, so Newcastle 3 places higher than I imagined. I had them 3 places lower, etc., etc. But they've had a superb season, haven't they? Trophy, Champions League, and Eddie Howe continues to do a brilliant job. Speaking of brilliant jobs, Liverpool won the title. I said they would finish 4th, and again, in that case, a miss is as good as a mile because we're talking about pretty much a sort of 15-point swing between what I said and what happened. Look, a lot of people got caught out by Liverpool. Here is a clip of what I said about the Premier League champions before they were the Premier League champions. Liverpool down 1 in 4th. Salah and Van Dijk and Alisson, who have just been like the best players in the Premier League for years now. They're certainly going to not be flogged for 38 games every season and relied upon to deliver, well, the title. I think even if Slot does a good job, it's going to be hard. You basically need 90 points or more to beat Man City. That's tremendous, isn't it? You basically need 90 points to beat Man City. Wrong. No, you don't. Liverpool obviously won the title by 10 points and scored 84. Look, I don't want to take anything away from Liverpool, but Man City's fall from grace in the winter we've already mentioned. The other thing I said was you can't rely on putting Salah, Van Dijk and Alisson out there as your main 3 players and hope that they're going to win the title. Yes, you can. You absolutely can. And, those 3 are going to go down as kind of Premier League icons, especially Salah, who was just sensational this season. I mean, Van Dijk's not bad either, is he? I mean, oh my God. And same thing as I said about Arsenal. We'll have the same conversation, I think, about Liverpool in the start of this season. Can you ride Salah and Van Dijk and Alisson out again once more? In the end, they have to move on from these 3, but they're still there, and they are the champions, Liverpool. So absolutely superb job there. Chelsea, I said, would finish 7th. They finished 4th. So I did not have Enzo Maresca getting Chelsea into the Champions League. I know they came quite strong at the end there, Chelsea, and a bit flaky and a bit inconsistent in there with 69 points. So fair play to Enzo Maresca, who was telling everybody to F off, who doubted him. So I will take that, Enzo. Great job, mate. What 2 good seasons in management there. 97 points with Leicester and winning the Championship. Yes, PSR breach included in that deal. But yeah, let's see where he has Chelsea next season. And Bournemouth, well, they confounded me and Mikey on their predictions. Very, very good. I will say about mid-table in the Premier League, it does feel like there's a massive hodgepodge where anyone could have finished anywhere if you just added a 3-game good run or 3-game bad run there. Wolves there on 42 in 16th. Then how high do you want to go up? Bournemouth on 56. 14 points there, separating 9th and 16th. So, it's much of a muchness, but maybe it's always like that in mid-table. But yeah, well played Bournemouth in 9th. That is outstanding from Iraola. And yeah, the only worry for Bournemouth now, not to rain on their parade, is the centre-back's going to Real Madrid. Where's the left-back going? He's brilliant as well, isn't he? Semenyo, brilliant. Evan Nilsson, Cliver, Iraola, the manager. They've got some real assets there, Bournemouth. They've recruited fantastically, haven't they? Right, we're a fair way out with this lot. +4s and -5s and etc. there. West Ham, well, I said they'd finish 10th. They actually finished 14th. Lopetegui to Potter, I suppose neither's really worked. And I was on Hammer's chat the other day speaking to Gio about that. And, they've had a really bad season, haven't they, West Ham, when you think they've had 2 managers in and it hasn't really worked out so far for Potter, and certainly didn't work out in terms of Lopetegui as well. But, they're miles away from going down, and they've just got to go again next season. Brentford, I said, would be 14th. They were actually 10th. And yeah, fair play Brentford, because in my head, they were going to struggle without Ivan Toney. And then look what Mbeumo and Visser have done. And Thomas Frank just is a stable Premier League manager with a stable Premier League top half club there, isn't he? Brilliant, brilliant stuff. Look, they have had a fair wind there, Brighton, Bournemouth and Brentford, haven't they? Given Man United, West Ham, Everton, Spurs, all in the bottom half this season. That will surely change, or will it, given what the top managers have said about Premier League mid-table, where we find Fulham, brilliant again, Silva. I thought there'd be a drop-off. I had them in 15th. They were actually 11th, and yeah, they've just punched their way. I know they came down, and I say it a lot, don't they? 90 million quid wage bill in the Championship and maintained a lot of really good players. So there's been a long development of this side under Marco Silva, but he keeps knocking on the points. 54 points, brilliant stuff. And Brighton, I thought it'd be a struggle with the young manager Hertzler, and my kind of thought was they have to have a bad season, once in a while. I know they struggled the first couple of seasons. They were up there, say with Houghton, and then handing over to Potter to just about stay up, but just comfortable now. I said they'd finished 13th. Brighton 8th. I think that's Europe, isn't it? I think half the league's in Europe this season. And yeah, they just continue to be the textbook teacher's pet example of how to get it right. Now, speaking of how to get it right, let's get on to how to get it wrong. And you know who these three teams are. 1, finished massively higher than everybody expected. And 2, finished massively lower than anyone expected. And if we didn't have the ridiculous chasms we did in English football, maybe you would have actually had 2 of English football's giant elite big 6 clubs actually in a relegation battle. As it happens, neither of them were. But let's do the good news story first, which was Nottingham Forest. And it's almost like a tinge of disappointment that they finished 7th, because there were points where you're like, they finished 6 points off 3rd place and just struggled. If you look in the run-in there, I've only got the last 5 games up on my form table over there, but Forest scored 7 points. 5 points in the last 5 games, whereas Chelsea scored 12 and Man City scored 13. That's the company they are in, and ended up finishing 7th, which is miles higher than I expected. Here is a clip. I'm just thinking about Mr. Marianakis, the owner, and Nuno. Maybe, is he all that popular already? I wonder whether Forest might actually be significantly below 16th, change managers, and then bounce their way up and finish strongly. They've always done what they need to since they've been up. What the hell's going to happen in the 3rd? I don't know, but I've got Forest surviving. Maybe a bit like that. So, to be very clear, I described what happened to Wolves was going to happen to Forest, i.e. you're going to stink it out in the first half of the season. The manager is going to get fired. They're going to change the manager, and up they go to 16th. I'm very happy to be wrong about that, because if you're a football fan of my age, you kind of have a soft spot for the likes of Nottingham Forest and Aston Villa and the like, especially if you cover the EFL as well. So Nuno, absolutely brilliant. And I do like a bit of diversity in terms of playing style. I like the way Forest play. Brilliant centre-backs. Happy to be without the ball because they've got Gibbs-White and Elanga, Hudson-Odoi. Yes, you can't rely forever on an overperformance from your striker, because Wood has been absolutely incredible. But maybe you can, because if you look at top strikers and their XG, and, don't get triggered by XG, I know a lot of people do, but the best strikers always overperform XG, which tells you what the average striker is going to do. Go figure, because they're better than average. So we will see what Forest do going forward. It's great that they're in Europe. It would have been incredible for them to be in the Champions League. So very, very happy to be wrong about Forest. I was 9 places out. I said they would be 16th. They actually finished 7th. That could have been a lot worse, couldn't it? They could have finished 3rd or 4th, and I would have been miles out. To be honest, I'd have been happy about that, like I said. And then, look, Man United, the great Man United, who, since I've been following football, have always been basically challenging for the title, winning the title at the top of the league. Never did I think, in the days of Fergie and Beckham, Keane, Giggs, Scholes and the class of 92 and whatnot, I'd ever see Man United 15th. But here they are. I do accept the theory that maybe they've bottomed out and here we go again, but it's been a very slow descent down, and here they are with Ruben Amorim looking to, get back to where everybody thinks the biggest club, or certainly the biggest club in the world, biggest club in England. I know you tell you tell me in terms of interest and commercial revenues and fan base around the world. Maybe they are, but that doesn't matter because they finished 15th in the league this season. And look, I'm going to be tempted. I'm sure you're going to be tempted when you do your pre-season predictions next season to say, okay, they're Man United. Back we go. Straight up into the top 6, top 5 again. We will see. Finally, Spurs. And again, we talked about Palace and the kind of paradigm between winning a trophy and not having a great season in the league. Well, multiply that by 10 for Spurs because they would expect to be right up there in the table. They finished one off relegation, albeit 13 points. I absolutely do not accept the argument that Ange decided at Christmas they were going to concentrate on the cups and give up the league. That's absolute nonsense, isn't it? That's revisionist history. No side or club of that size and quality decides that they're going to finish 17th. I think that's convenient revisionist history. But speaking of revisionist history, I'm not going to do that because I'm literally going to play you a clip of what I said about Spurs and where they would finish this season. I've got them going down one place. Daniel Levy is brilliant at making profits and delivering stadiums and top 6, 7 football, but maybe not top 4 football and trophies. So really like Big Ange, but what am I seeing that's different from last season that puts them higher than 5th? Well, I'm right about one thing. What am I seeing that's different from last season that puts them higher than 5th? Absolutely nothing, because they dropped down from so it must have been 5th down to 17th, is that right? So a drop of 12 places, by the way. So me being 11 out is not actually as bad as what Spurs actually did. I think it's interesting. I said Daniel Levy is very good at producing profits, stadiums, but not necessarily trophies. Well, I don't know. I'd be interested to get an honest answer from the Spurs head honcho there. Is he happy with this season? They've got the trophy that all the Spurs fans wanted, but miles off it in the league. But then if you're talking about participation trophies and Champions League qualifications and balance sheets as opposed to the glory of winning a title, then maybe you would just take the trophy. So Spurs are where I have bottomed out there, 11 places. I said to finish 6th. They finished 17th. There we go, guys. That is my reaction to my pre-season predictions. Let me know how you got on. A lot of people put their predictions under in the comments of my initial video, which I will link up there. So if you want to comment on that video, you can do. And if you can find your predictions in amongst the, I'm sure, many, many comments on that one, then leave a comment under that and let me know how you did. And let me know, particularly, if you're not a fan of one of those teams and you didn't get stitched up by Forest being better than everyone expected and Man United and Spurs being worse than anyone expected, then let me know in the comments. Right, go and let it burn. If you want to see the whole video, as I said, it's up there, ready to watch from the beginning of the season. In fact, we'll put 2 up there because I have done this same exercise for my championship predictions as well. I'm supposed to know more about that league. Why don't you go and find out and see how I got on over there?